How to get rid of a pendulum. Reality Transurfing. Vadim, Zeland. It is useless to fight a pendulum. As has already been shown above, to fight a pendulum means to give it your energy. The first and most important condition for a successful fight with a pendulum is to refuse to fight it. Firstly, the more actively you fight off the pendulums that bother you, the more actively they will press. You can endlessly repeat, "Leave me alone. Leave me alone." It seems to you that you are fighting them off, but in fact, you are feeding the pendulums with your energy, and they stick to you even more. Secondly, you have no right to condemn or change anything in this world. You need to accept everything as exhibits in a museum, whether you like them or not. There may be many exhibits in a museum that you do not like. However, it does not occur to you to demand that they be removed from there. After you have acknowledged the pendulum's right to exist, you have the right to leave it, not to succumb to its influence. But the main thing is not to fight it, not to condemn it, not to get angry, not to lose your temper, because all this will mean your participation in its game. On the contrary, you must calmly accept it as a given, as an inevitable evil, and then leave it. By showing rejection in any form, you give energy to the pendulum. Before you understand what it means to choose, you should learn to refuse. People, as a rule, have a vague idea of what they want, but everyone knows exactly what they do not want. In an effort to get rid of unwanted things or events, many act in such a way that the opposite happens. In order to refuse, you must accept. The word accept here does not mean to let it in, but to recognize the right to exist and indifferently pass by. To accept and let go means to pass it through yourself and wave goodbye. On the contrary, to accept and leave means to let something in, and then to become attached or resist it. If you are bothered by thoughts about something you don't like, it will be in your life. Imagine that one person doesn't like apples. He simply hates them. They make him sick. The person could simply ignore them, but he is not happy with the fact that such a nasty thing as apples is present in the world he lives in. They irritate him every time he sees them, and he actively expresses his disgust. This is on the material level. However, on the energy level, this is similar to how a person greedily pounces on apples, stuffs his mouth, loudly champs and squeals that he hates them, fills his pockets, chokes, and complains again about how tired he is of them.
It doesn't occur to a person that he can simply throw apples out of his life if he doesn't want them. Whether you love something or hate it, it doesn't matter. The main thing is that if your thoughts are fixated on the object of your feelings, the energy of thoughts is fixed at a certain frequency. So you find yourself captured by a pendulum and transferred to the corresponding lifelines, where the object of fixation is present in abundance. If you do not want to have something, just do not think about it, indifferently pass by, and it will disappear from your life. To throw out of life does not mean to avoid, but to ignore. To avoid means to allow into your life, but actively try to get rid of it. To ignore means not to react in any way, and therefore not to have. Imagine that you are a radio receiver. Every day you wake up and listen to a radio station. You hate the world that surrounds you, so tune into another frequency. It may seem to you that by installing an iron curtain between yourself and the world, you will protect yourself from unwanted pendulums. This is nothing more than an illusion. Being in an iron shell, you say to yourself, "I am a blank wall. I see nothing, I hear nothing, I know nothing, I will not tell anyone anything. There is no access to me." To maintain such a protective field, it is necessary to expend energy, and a lot of it. A person who is trying to intentionally fence himself off from the world is constantly tense. In addition, the energy of the protective field is tuned to the frequency of the pendulum against which the protection is directed. And this is exactly what the pendulum needs. It does not care how you give energy with desire or without. What then is protection from the pendulum? Emptiness. If I am empty, there is nothing to hook me on. I do not enter the pendulum's game, but I do not try to protect myself from it either. I simply ignore it. The pendulum's energy flies by without touching me and dissipates into space. The pendulum's game does not bother me, does not touch me. In relation to it, I am empty. The main task of the pendulum is to attract as many adherents as possible and receive energy from them. If you ignore the pendulum, it will leave you alone and switch to others, because it only affects those who accept its game, that is, begin to radiate at its frequency. The crudest example: a barking dog has followed you. If you turn around, it will bark even louder. If you take it seriously and begin to argue with it, it will run after you for a long time, because its goal is to find someone to quarrel with. But if you ignored her, she would switch to another object.
And notice, it would never even occur to her to be offended at you for not paying attention to her. She's too absorbed in her goal of getting energy to think about anything else. If you replace the door with a awesome person, this model will work in exactly the same way. In one school, in the junior class, there was a boy who really liked to bully everyone. They answered him, some with words, some with deeds, but in any case, he enjoyed it. He literally got on everyone's nerves and no one knew how to get rid of him. But the amazing thing is, there was a girl in the class whom he did not touch. No, he did not have sympathy for her, but he did not offend her either. The teacher could not understand why. It turned out that the girl simply did not pay any attention to the bully. For her, he simply did not exist. Other children always responded adequately to his antics, responded to provocations, in other words, radiated energy at the frequency of the pendulum. So the children involuntarily became followers of this provocateur, and he bathed in their energy. Followers in this case are not admirers. It makes no difference to the pendulum whether you love it or not. The main thing is that you give it energy. If someone is bothering you, try on the model of a destructive pendulum on him. It will probably fit him. If you cannot extinguish him, then simply do not respond to provocations. Ignore him. He will not leave you until you stop giving him your energy. You can give energy both directly, by arguing with him, and indirectly, by silently hating. Stop giving energy means not thinking about him at all, throwing him out of your head. Just tell yourself to hell with him, and he will leave your life. However, it often happens that you cannot simply ignore the pendulum. For example, your boss calls you to the carpet. Simply refusing or defending yourself will mean losing energy, since both are a fight with the pendulum. In such cases, you can pretend to enter the pendulum's game. The main thing is that you realize that you are entering the game for real. Imagine how a huge guy swings a sledgehammer at you and hits you with all his might. You have nothing against it. You do not defend yourself or attack. At this moment, you simply calmly step aside, and the guy, along with the sledgehammer, flies into the void.
This means that the pendulum cannot catch on to you and falls through. This principle underlies Aikido. The following literally happens there. The attacker is taken by the arm. They walk with him as if seeing him off, and then they easily let go and send him flying in the direction where his energy was directed. The whole secret is that the defender has nothing against the attack. He agrees with the attacker's line, goes along with him for some time, and then lets go. The attacker's energy falls into the void, because if the defender is empty, then there is nothing to hook him on. The technique of such a soft exit is that you respond to the first attack of the pendulum with consent, and then diplomatically retreat or unobtrusively direct the movement in the direction you need. For example, an excited boss wants to dump work on you and energetically demands that it be done exactly as he thinks. You know that this should be done differently, or it is not your responsibility at all. If you begin to object, argue, defend yourself, he will harshly demand obedience. After all, he made a decision, and you are going against it. Do the opposite. Listen carefully, agree with everything, let the first impulse dry up, and then calmly begin to discuss the details of the work with him. At this moment, you have accepted the energy of the boss and are radiating at his frequency. His impulse, not meeting resistance, gets stuck for a while. You do not tell him that you know better how to do this job. Do not refuse and do not argue. You simply consult with the boss about how you could do the job faster and better. Or maybe another performer will do it better. You swing with the pendulum, but you do it consciously, not participating in the game. but as if observing from the side, it swings, completely immersed in the game. This is his game, he makes a decision, and they agree with him and consult with him. You will see that the energy previously directed at you will go to the side, towards another decision or another performer. Thus, the pendulum will fail for you personally. It is only necessary to be careful in applying this technique to individual people, so as not to stoop to ordinary meanness.